Now, hands up this morning, who may be a bit tired? Anybody? Maybe you got up a little bit earlier than usual. Well, one man who did, I couldn't let this slip. Come on, Tim, you've got to give me this one. So would you like to just explain? Tim from Compassion, by the way, great to have him back. But before we get started with all the official stuff, you sent me a message at 7 o'clock and it said, you haven't forgotten about me, have you? And then no, of course I haven't. And then you obviously thought that we used to do this feature at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Morning, Tim.
Good morning. Yes, yeah. Have your fun. Please have your fun. Yeah. So, yes, I am feeling a bit tired and could have had an extra hour in bed, but there you go. But I was keen. I was keen to be with you, Gareth.
Clearly. Now, you have been doing quite a lot of events, you and Compassion, since we last spoke. So, like all of our guests, we decided that we would take some time off over August. But before we get started on that, I suppose we need to do what we call in the industry a reset. And we need to actually know what Compassion is all about. Because since we last spoke, there'll be new listeners who have been to some of the events that we've been at, and we've introduced them to the radio station. So, Compassion UK are the official breakfast show sponsor, but it's more than just that, Tim, isn't it? Tell us all about Compassion.
Yeah, sure, Gareth. Well, Compassion's been going for well over 70 years now, and during that time, 1 million children have gone through our programs. These are children who are faced with the challenge of abject poverty. They're the poorest of the poor, and as a result of their story being told, people who are able to invest in their lives through Compassion, who work only through the local church in their community and their country, to be able to give these children a hope and a future, to give them an opportunity, because poverty, isn't just about not having any money or a nice house to live in or food or a job or that kind of thing. Those are consequences. Poverty is a lack of choice. It's a lack of option. This is the situation, and it stops people in their tracks. They cannot move any further. And that legacy is just handed down of poverty all the time. And so Compassion through the local church is coming alongside some of the poorest children in currently 29 countries around the world, seeking to work with them to give them a hope and a future. And, many of your listeners will be sponsors, and we really do appreciate your support and your partnership in this. We just want to see more. Currently, 356 million children in our world still face the challenge of abject poverty. And so our work is not over yet. We've still got more to do. And together with other NGOs and charities and everybody else that's seeking to make a difference to the lives of the poor, then we need to pull out all the stops and do what we can.
Now, in the next few months, we are going to be going through some of these stories, and we'll be finding out more about Compassion. But what you can do right now, if you're new to this and you've just for the first time heard of what Compassion do, then go to the website compassionuk.org, and on there you'll be able to see a load of the children at the moment who are looking for sponsorship. So, for example, we've got Edison, who's been waiting for 5 months. He's 5 years old and he's based in Brazil. Then you've got Karen, who's in Bolivia. She's 4 years old. She's been waiting for 5 months. And it's a life-changing commitment that you're making here. We're not just talking about, giving them one meal. That's great and everything, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about a lifelong commitment on these children, because through your sponsorship, it enables them to actually have a future. And it's all on the website. Just go to compassionuk.org. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to play a song and then come back with Tim, because Compassion have been at loads of events. And in fact, most of the events that we went to, they were there. But actually, a lot of the events that we weren't at, they were at. And you may have seen the big blue elephant there, and you may have spoken to members of the team. Well, we'll be doing a little review of the events that they've been to in just a moment. So wait while you are, stay there. But whilst you're staying there, have a look at the website, and maybe it's a name, maybe it's an area, maybe there's something that your heart says, that's the child. That's the child that we ought to sponsor. CompassionUK.org. Funniest thing here is that we still have that problem in the studio. We will get this fixed, but we still got that problem in the studio where the guests can't hear me speak off air. So usually we have a bit of a natter, and instead it can either be, depending on how well I know the guest, it'll just be silence, and you'll have that awkward time of just looking at each other and just now and again waving, going, oh, all right, yeah, on in a minute. Or you'll be able to open the chat, of course, and you'll be able to talk to each other. Now, I did a bit of a sound test, and Tim said that I sound like a Klingon, and I also look like one as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tim from Compassion UK. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Gareth.
So
you don't really. You're a good-looking guy.
Thank you very much. You, on the other hand. So thank you for joining us this morning. If you don't know, Compassion are our official breakfast show sponsors. And it's so great when people get in touch to say that they're already sponsoring children and they share their experiences with us. So a few people actually have said that they are sponsoring children. And one person during that song, in fact, Kim said that they've been sponsoring a child for the last 8 years. And the great thing is that their children have grown up with the child that they're sponsoring. And that's what can sometimes happen, isn't it, Tim? Where it's almost like sort of, in a way, your children, they write to that child. And I bet you've got some stories, haven't you, where maybe the children meet each other at a later date.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. And thank you, Kim, so much for sponsoring a child. You're making such a difference. You really are. And as you say, you know, your children grow up, they're writing the letters, they're sending their pictures. And so often we go to an event or to a church or somewhere where younger people might come up and say, hey, my mum and dad always sponsored children. And now I've got a job and I want to be able to do the same, you know? So that's amazing. So, I mean, just in terms of people meeting, so often sponsors have been able to meet their child if they've been fortunate enough to be in the country, and that's been set up. So all kinds of exciting stories, but yeah, let's hand that legacy down so that our young people are getting great values and recognizing the importance of, you know, sharing what we have that can make a difference to others.
And remember, it's all on the website. If you head over there, it is CompassionUK.org. And from there, you'll be able to not only sponsor a child, but you'll be able to pray for the organization. There's prayer points on there. Maybe your church wants to get involved. In fact, maybe you want to get Tim and his team down to your church to actually tell all the congregation about what Compassion do. You'll also be able to see on their socials a lot of the clips and the footage and the photos of this year's event so far, because you've been at loads of them, haven't you, Tim?
Yeah, not personally. I've been to 2 or 3, but our teams, you know, go to a lot of events, a lot of the big summer Christian festivals and events. But also we've seen a real kind of dearth of worship events, of women's conferences, all kinds of events, warehouse worship, all kinds of things that are going on now around the country, bringing God's people together. And we've just been delighted to build relationships with those festival organizers and do what we can to really raise awareness, but also speak up for the rights of the poor, which the Bible tells us to do. So, you know, sometimes those are events are like just a one-night thing. Other times they could be over 3 or 4 days, 5 or 6 days, like New Wine or Focus or other bigger festivals. And of course, then we've got to take everything with us. We sometimes take the compassion experience, which is a big truck, and it's an interactive experience where people can walk through, and it's as though they're walking through different rooms, really, that kind of help them to understand what poverty looks like and sounds like and feels like. So a room that looks like maybe somebody's house that's living in the developing world, maybe their classroom or the compassion project, or these different things, and helps them to engage more with the need of the poor, really. And the other one is, of course, the big blue elephant. I think you mentioned it earlier on, Gareth. So he's made an appearance at several festivals, but we've got a bit of a problem in that he keeps getting a bit deflated. Now, I don't know if that's because he's depressed. We all get deflated. I don't know if somebody said something unkind or whatever, but I kind of think that it was down to a child who was stabbing it with a biro.
Really?
So
did that happen?
It did happen. So we found the holes, and but the problem was we had to keep inflating each day. So
cheeky little monkey.
Yeah. If we find that child,
then you will show it grace like compassion do to all children.
Lots of grace. Oh, we always do that.
But we're going to one more event. We announced this on the show yesterday. We're going to be at CRE. You're at a few this autumn as well. Again, not you personally, but the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of those events are worship events. We're also at leadership conferences as well, that various networks and denominations put on. Those are more kind of networking opportunities that we use to be able to say hi to leaders and share a little bit about what we do, whether that's over a coffee or whether we have the opportunity to share from the main stage, and then seek to build those kind of relationships that could lead to partnership. But yeah, many different worship events where in the course of all that worship and the presence of God, we're able to just remind people that actually worship needs to be linked to justice, and that actually it's one thing to have that kind of receive justice from God and live in the presence of God, but actually now it's about showing justice and mercy to other people. And so we challenge people. What are you going to do with the relationship that you have with God? Are you going to show that mercy and extend that grace out to others as well? So we're looking forward to a busy autumn now, and lots of churches as well. So lots of great things are going to happen.
Well, it's great to have you back, Tim. And it feels like we're all back to normal now, with it being September. And Tim will be back with us in 2 weeks' time, because we're going to do it twice a month now, aren't we? Every other week on the show.
That's right.
And we've got many guests lined up. We'll be talking to different people within the organisation. We'll also be talking to people who have been actually part of the organisation from the other side, who have maybe had their lives changed by compassion. But it's all on the website. This is the key thing. Go to the website, compassionuk.org. You'll be able to sponsor a child from there. And you'll also be able to see where Compassion are, what events, and you'll be able to see the prayer points, because prayer, I'm sure Tim will agree. In fact, I know he will agree. I don't know why I said I'm sure he'll agree that prayer is useful. It is useful for your organisation. And there's many people praying for you and the team over there. So good to have you back, Tim. And thanks very much.
Great to be back. Thanks, Gareth.